I never say, yeah, I can do it. I definitely can, I'm very empirical, very pragmatic, If I want it, I got to get it. If you really want it, you got to get it. What are they doing that I'm not doing? Let me do that, right? Let me train how the top train. If you want to be a really good soccer player, look at Cristiano Ronaldo. How do they train? Do that.
You just heard an excerpt from my interview with Mohamed Hassan, who went from a kid with parents who had dreams to an Olympian. How do you do it? How do you stay the course? How do you navigate? This is his story. I can't wait for you to hear it. I'm Dr. Nate Sala, and this is A Call to Leadership. Mohamed, so good to have you on this episode of A Call to Leadership. I've been a member of your family's journey, if you will, over all these years. And you and I have not really gotten to know each other face to face as much as I've heard through, mom and dad about your life and your journeys. And I just really wanted to have you join me for a conversation around you and this next generation of leadership. We often will spend time with people who are maybe in a season of maturity and leadership where they've crossed the river and they've established themselves. But having conversations with up and coming leaders is so important. And to hear, the story, the journey, where you are, where you plan to go, how you see the world around you, I think it's such a beautiful thing. So I'm glad to have you.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me over here. Like you said, this is like our second meeting together, and I've heard a lot about you as well, growing up and all the work that you do for us and how really important it is,
Indeed.
And I agree. The conversation about leadership has to be had with, anyone who, let's say, is aspiring to lead people to a certain goal. And, it's great to also look at, example of, those people who have crossed the river and have done the thing, right? And learn from their mistakes and, take from their perspectives and their successes and build something even bigger for the future.
Agreed. So when you think of great leaders in your context, I'm in my late 40s, you're in your 20s. What comes to mind in your context? Who comes to mind when you think of a great examples of leadership, or are there any that you can even think of right now? Because, let me preface that. Even in not only academic circles, but in practitioner circles, there's been this mantra that says that leadership is in crisis, that we have these ongoing crises of leadership. And this has been said, since the 50s, 60s, 70s, and even previous generations may have been saying the same things about their generation. Do you think in your age and your context that leadership is in crisis, or do you think that there are really good leaders out there?
That's a difficult question. Okay, so I'll start with, let's say, great leaders that I've seen in my lifetime or ones that I can look up to. Okay, now I'm a sportsman. I also watch a lot of sports. Okay, and although fencing is an individual sport, there are national teams and, let's say, college sports teams, and even the clubs can function as teams. And let's say in sports, I've seen like LeBron James, for example, I think is a pretty decent leader in his time. And he's been showing certain characteristics for a while that he's a good leader. And he leads his teams quite often and is very active visually, that you can see when he, let's say, directs his teams. I also worked at a consulting company, Daugherty Business Solutions, and their CEO, Ron Daugherty, also a fencer. I've observed him for, let's say, years, long time. I've known him since I was, 9 maybe. One of the first people in fencing in St. Louis that we came across. And I watched him, like first person view in his company, work and speak and, direct people in his company towards specific goals, in a very gentleman, calm manner. And so that's a good leader that I've seen in my lifetime. But in terms of, I kind of got lost, in my opinion, to your original question. Can you repeat it again?
No, this is good. Actually, I'm going to keep going with the direction. I'll come back to that.
Yeah.
So what do you think? You talk about LeBron James. When you say certain characteristics, what kind of characteristics stand out to you that you say, okay, this guy is a leader worth following?
He's not afraid to say how he feels, and he's not afraid to ask for what he wants. Okay. But at the same time, you know, all we see is stuff on television and things that are said, let's say, in media. I think it's a little bit distorted, let's say, right? But, you know, on the ground, like boots on the ground, you know, leaders that I've seen kind of aren't afraid to get their hands dirty. And I think they have to be, before they lead, they have to be willing to follow someone else in a position of leadership. I think why, in my opinion, you know, where I see the crisis in leadership is that you have a lot of young people not willing to follow, not willing to look up to someone and, you know, do the thing that someone else wants them to do, for example. Interesting.
And so I agree. I think that leadership starts with followership, right? And in fact, I believe there's a really good formula called follow, lead, repeat, right? Because even when you're leading, you are still having to follow again and then repeat the process, right? Because even say a LeBron James, he's going to have to observe and invent and create new understandings of how he moves forward in his own leadership. And that generally would come from following someone else, maybe a mentor, things like that. And so what you're saying is sometimes, and I don't know if it's necessarily this generation, because I even remember my generation, certain aspects of my own walk is I didn't want to follow anybody, right? I was hard-headed. I was independent minded, and it caused me pain because I was like, I'm going to do it my own way. But that's not just me, that's many people. And I've found that sometimes being independent minded is good, and sometimes it certainly can be a detriment. As you grew up, what kind of influences did you have around you? Because now, you know, you being what I would call and others would call a champion, you know, you are a champion, you've reached the highest level, you know, the Olympics, and, you know, hopefully we've not seen the best of you yet, right? There's even more to come, right? Yes. Excellent. But that's a journey that requires many aspects of leadership in your own life and your own leadership to even make itself manifested. So start to unpack that a little bit for our audience.
Sure. So I'd say the first leader I came across was obviously my father. My father is my fencing coach, still is my fencing coach, and, you know, my dad, you know, he showed me the way, right? He showed me the road that I have to take, you know, myself. He didn't push me down a road, and he said, if you want to, you know, be great at something, this is what you have to do. And, you know, he pushed me in the beginning and started to hold me accountable. And as time went on, you know, he would withdraw a little bit. And so I have to keep myself accountable, you know, little by little, you know, until now I'm the one telling him, hey, let's go.
Yeah. So how old were you when you were introduced to fencing?
Okay. So I came to the US when I was 7, and my dad was a coach at a club in Egypt at that time. And so I would go to the club, you know, to socialize with other young kids, you know, with my mom. And that's when I saw fencing for the first time. I never did it while I was in Egypt. You know, I would, you know, mess around and grab a couple of, you know, foils and stuff, but I would never fence. It wasn't until we came to the United States, and that's when I started to actually, you know, learn fencing and, you know, develop liking for it. That's my journey with fencing, at least. And so through my time as a fencer, I had a lot of role models, or not role models, let's say, but older people to look up to, you know, whether they were good role models or bad role models, but someone to set an example of, let's say, right and wrong, you know, do this, don't do this, you know, right. Because that's kind of the way fencing works. It's like any martial arts, you know, you're young, someone who knows a little bit more is going to try to lead you or teach you the ways.
Right. Yeah. In fact, it's been said, someone only has to be 2 steps ahead of you, right, to lead you.
Absolutely.
Right. And you said something earlier. I want to touch on this.
Okay.
When you mentioned that your dad said, if you want to excel, or if you want to succeed, or if you want to achieve and reach this level, here's what you have to do. This to me is really attractive because so often I think that leaders or even parents will tell their kids what to do. And sometimes for some of the wrong reasons, maybe because they want to live through their children and because maybe they were not able to achieve themselves. And then they want to push their kids to do something to make themselves feel good. And I think that having the mindset and the attitude and even just the vernacular, the language to say, look, here's the path. Now, of course, if you're accepting of this and if it's a decision that you want to make and this is where you want to go, I'm going to push you. I'm going to motivate you. I'm going to hold you accountable. But that's much different than saying this is what you're going to do, whether you like it or not.
Right.
And I think, do you think that some parents fall into, I mean, now that you've been, instructing and you've been, do you see both sides of that and what happens?
Absolutely. I've been in fencing for a really long time and I've seen a lot of parents come through, let's say the fencing club and my fencing club and fencing clubs around the world and in Egypt. And there are a lot of parents who are, let's say, very, dominant with how they want their kids to, live their life while they're still, under parental supervision, let's say. And there are a lot of kids who do something and they don't want to do it with every ounce of their being, but they're just kind of forced to do it, right? I kind of had an option. It didn't seem like it at the time, but it was an option because let's say there comes a day where I really just didn't feel like going to practice, and, like you said earlier, he gave me the choice. Like, if you want to do it and you want to go down this road, it's your choice. And now if you take that choice, I will push you, right? I'll hold you accountable to the decision that you make. And so, get into, as a kid, all these arguments. Oh, Dad, like, I don't want to go today, this and that. And, it always ends with, look, you want to come, go for it. You want to stay at home, go for it, period. Right. And so every single time I'd sit down to myself, fine, let's go, but I'm the one that's going, sometimes he'll make it out the door before I leave and I'll just, run after him, tears down my face sometimes, but
you did it.
But I do it, I got up and did it. But there are parents who, you're doing this, period. No questions asked. Do as I say.
Yeah. Begrudgingly.
Yeah.
And what has been your observation as far as the trajectory of those kids who it's just like a forced?
They never make it.
Not one.
No, they never continue because eventually their lost interest is just gonna continue to grow and grow and grow, and it'll eventually just kind of explode, and they just won't do it, like, categorically. They really don't want to do something. They eventually won't do it. And, as a child, it's difficult to say no to your parents, because they're your main source of, truth, information, guidance, support, life. So they say something and you kind of just intuitively feel a responsibility to have to do it. And so, hey, you're going to do this because, X, Y, Z. And it's like, okay, I don't really want to do it. Yeah. Too bad.
Well, and it's not just sports. I've heard this also with other entrepreneurs and their children. And so where the business owner says, well, it's to the child, you're going to take over the family business. And I've heard these are adults later, 10, 20, 30 years say, it hurt to be told that was what I had to do because I had no real passion, no purpose, no desire to do it. And it was eventually a train wreck. And so even with my own son, who over the past maybe 5-6 years, he's only 14 now, but even when he was 9, 10, he said, Dad, I feel like I need to take over the family business. I'm like, why? He said, well, because of the name, I don't want you to sell the business or to stop the business and the name to stop. I said, that's the worst reason why you would ever take over the business. I said, right. I don't want you to do that. He's like, what do you mean? I said, I don't want to put you into something that is not going to be something that you are passionate about, something that you believe you have purpose and something that you're good at, that you actually have the aptitude to do as well, if not better than me in it. And I think there's a liberation. There's a freedom and maybe even a where kids can then say, oh, wow, that's a good thing because my parents actually care about what I would flourish in rather than what they would flourish through me in.
Right. Self-expression is extremely important, right? And if you decide something for someone, you're practically suppressing their opportunity to express themselves, right?
Very good.
So the fencing club, you're saying your son saying that he wants to take over the family business because to keep the name and got to keep going strong. That's great. I think his intentions are really good. But how old is he?
He's 14.
Yeah, he's young. Okay.
Yeah, he's young. Right. And a lot can change.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot can change. And so, I certainly appreciate that. But what I want him to understand is that, his life is not necessarily a passing of the baton of my life. He can write his own story and that I will 100% support it. That doesn't mean that he won't take over the family business. If that's the trajectory and that's something that I see that he's excelling in and he's, going to make this a wonderful opportunity for everyone that we get to serve, absolutely 100%. But that is not the end all be all. I don't care. Like there's no, I don't get any additional value out of it. Right. I want him to be his own man and write his own story.
Right. That'll give you more.
That actually makes me more utility. Yeah. Actually, I derive more utility from him. And part of the reason I think is because that was my trajectory in terms of nobody helped me necessarily to, pave the way. And I think it built the kind of character that has staying power when you're not relying on everyone else to tell you who you are and who you ought to be.
Right. I see. So drawing some similarities between you and your son's situation and let's say me and my dad's situation, he's getting older now and, coaching is physical. And so a lot of talk has been, going between me and him about, the continuation of the club, if I'm going to continue, if I'm going to coach. And, I keep telling him, we'll cross that bridge when we get there because right now is not the time. And I'm kind of in between, and I want to do what we say in Egypt is grabbing the stick from the middle, right? Which is, I like coaching, I like teaching, but I definitely don't have the patience that he has, let's say, for it. I'm very selective with who it is that I want to work with just at my current stage right now. I'm a competitor. I want to work with competitors. I don't have the patience for, let's say, beginners, right? So if, let's say, I said, all right, I'll take over now, I'm going to have a horrible time. I'm not going to be happy, for, let's say, 60, 70% of the time, because that's about most of the kids. So what I want to do is, let's say, like I said, grab the stick from the middle and do my part now as much as I can to the best of my ability and be able to express myself in whatever it is that I want to do freely, right? And I think there's a fine balance, let's say, between taking over the club and pursuing my own dreams and aspirations, and at the same time, he's accepting of that, right? If I say categorically, I'm not doing it, I don't want to do it at all, he as hard as it will be for him, I think he will just kind of bite the bullet and say, okay, which I think is him setting a good example, let's say, for me, if I'm going to do something similar with my child, if that time comes, a long time from now. Yeah. So,
no, that's good. And I think that's important for our listeners to hear your journey in this, because, there are some who are either on the end of being the child who, and I say child, but obviously some, adult children too.
The heir, whatever you want to call it.
Who feel, oh boy, I feel like I have to achieve this level because it'll make my parents happy or it'll give them some kind of comfort or reward or, like you said, utility. And I think what you're saying is if your parents understand and really try to tap into your true passions, that even though it hurts that maybe they didn't pursue what they thought that you should pursue, then they'll understand and give the blessing for that great pursuit, which may be different. In fact, so there's data that actually supports this. In my dissertation, when I was working on my PhD, I studied Milton Hershey, Walt Disney, and Steve Jobs. And I studied essentially vision formation, and vision execution for these iconic entrepreneurs. And the correlations, what was similar, what was different. Well, I found this remarkable similarity in their father relationship with them. And part of that similarity is kind of what we're talking about, is a breaking of what the parents thought the children should achieve, all three of them, Hershey, Disney, and Jobs, and what their own pursuits were. And what I called it was this, it wasn't necessarily rebelliousness, but it was a challenging of the vision that was not their own vision, so that they can create their own vision. So they didn't surrender to their context. They began to master their context. And so, for example, Milton Hershey's dad wanted Hershey to be a typesetter, essentially a newspaper guy. And he had Hershey work when he was 12 years old, typesetting a German newspaper in the rural Pennsylvania area, because they were Mennonite background. And anyway, and so young Milton accidentally dropped his straw hat into the printing press equipment, broke it. Well, he got fired.
Oh,
maybe accidentally, maybe not so accidentally, as the story goes. But then mom, in her wisdom, saw that maybe there were other options for my son, who had more of an inventiveness about him. And so she enrolled him in an apprenticeship at Royer's confectionery in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, to make candy. And of course, he loved it. And you could say the rest of they say is history, right? Because we eat Hershey candy all over the world. Of course, a lot of things had to happen, but that was one instance. Same thing with Disney. Disney's dad wanted him to be a musician, a great violinist.
Really?
Yeah. And Walt loved to draw, and he loved to animate, and he loved to tell stories. And of course, he had to challenge his father's vision for him as well, and so on and so forth. Steve Jobs, his dad was a mechanic, and he worked on cars and things like that. And Steve had no desire to do that. Now, he did have a desire. He did like the electronics world, obviously.
Yeah.
Right.
Clearly, yeah.
But you can see these correlations, right? So there's an entrepreneurial context that they lived in, but they were free to write their own story.
Right.
And it speaks volumes. Right. So as your story is being written, right, you're would you consider yourself to be extremely competitive?
Yeah.
Very. Yeah, very. Yeah. So growing up, tell me about how that unfolds. Were you always competitive? Tell me about that.
I was competitive in every setting that remotely resembled any competition, whether it was in the classroom, PE, recess, at home with my sister, in the kitchen, obviously at the fencing club, anything that two people, if I was doing something and someone else was doing the same thing, oh man, I wanted to push myself really hard to do better than them. Like down to the sit and reach test at gym, where they see how far you can reach without, bending your knees or whatever. Oh man, I would go so hard just to try to be number one, and I would ask the teacher, I said, what was my score? What was my like length, and he'd tell me. And then I'd say, what did everybody else get? And he said, I'm not telling you, and I'd come on, please. And I'd plead with him because I wanted to see how I stacked up against everybody else around me, as a kid. And obviously, at the fencing club, I would try to, win all of my bouts, regardless of who it was that I was going against, even if I was, let's say 10 and I was going up against one of the older kids, 16, 17 years old, who have been doing it for a very long time, way longer than I have. I would still try my best. And even though I knew I was at a significant disadvantage, I would still be very upset, if I lost or something, until I finally started winning. So when you would lose, or when you would not reach that top echelon of whatever you thought that was possible, what was your attitude? Well, it's definitely changed over the years with, just experience and maturing, but, as a kid, when I was very young, I would just be very upset, period. I'd be very upset. I wouldn't think about why I lost. And I wouldn't think about what I did or what the opponent did. I was just very in the moment, like, I lost. I was defeated. Like, this sucks. I don't like this. I'm crying. And it wasn't until I was, let's say, a teenager that I started digging in a little bit, right? What did I do wrong? What could I have done differently? What did they do that I just couldn't figure out? And, you know, obviously in sports, there's the third party, like a referee, for example, who could make mistakes. And, you know, you get very into those mistakes in the moment and give them too much weight for what they really are, because it's out of your hands at, you know, at that point. And it is difficult growing up and wrapping your head around that concept that sometimes things happen and it's just out of your control, but it's the responsibility falls on you ultimately to decide how you're going to proceed.
So when you would see a call that was a mistake,
right,
and you knew, okay, there's nothing I can do about it,
right?
I mean, what do you think? Okay, next time I'm going to make sure that I do so well that even if there is a mistake on the ref's part, I will win. I mean, what's going on in your head?
I mean, you know, it depends on the bout.
Yeah,
you know,
man.
If it's very, very close,
Yeah.
the match, and the referee makes a mistake, you're obviously going to be way more, they say, tilted. They say you're gonna be more affected naturally than, let's say, you had like a 10-point lead. You know, if the referee makes a mistake at a 10-point lead, I may not even say anything, right? But if it's, let's say, the last point of the match and you're both tied dead even, 14-14, first to 15 wins, and you make an action and you feel with all your heart it's supposed to be your point, the referee calls it the other way, you've just lost, right? Go home. And so you have to be able to take that in and just move on somehow. And the younger you are, so difficult, so difficult, especially because fencing is, you know, it's an individual sport. There's no one else to share the load. You know, it's all on you. But, you know, as I got older, you know, I started to just deal with it more. You know, it's just because of all the experience. You know, it wasn't something new. You know, it's like, okay, I've been here before, act like it. You know, referee makes a mistake. Let them know that you're not happy with it and move on.
Yeah.
That the most important part is to move on.
Right. To not live in the moment.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Just let it go.
Yeah. Do you think that competitiveness is essential for excelling?
Do I think that competitiveness is essential for excelling?
At least in let's just call it in fencing.
In fencing? Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
You gotta want to win, right? And I think overall, especially in the United States, absolutely. It is a competitive world out there, and whatever it is you're doing, you know, you're even in school, you know, you may know it, you may not. You're competing with everyone else around you. You're trying to get a good GPA. You're trying to stand out so that you can, let's say, go to a decent university. And after, let's say, you conquer school, you conquer your high school, let's say you're valedictorian. Now you're in another race. You're in another competition, applying to try to get into, let's say, a really good university. You're number one pick. You know, you're competing with so many other applicants. You know, you're always competing. If you're an artist and you don't even see anybody, you know, you do your art and you upload it, you sell it, you draw it, and you frame it. The competition, there's a lot of other people doing the same thing. The only time you're not in a competition is if you're doing something nobody else in the world is doing.
Right.
But, you know, there is healthy and unhealthy competition.
Right. Yes.
You have to stick to the healthy stuff. You know,
I agree. And I've always been a really competitive person as well in everything I've done. Mm-hmm. And even I used to teach a class that the tagline was, you know, creating a competitive advantage. Mm-hmm. And it was a business class, right? So competition and the way I, in a business context, I view competition less as me trying to take something away from another business.
Yeah.
But the competition is, I want to make sure that I've created enough of an opportunity for my best fit client to find me.
Yeah, you're right.
And so that they know, here I am. Mm-hmm. And I love the way you described it about standing out. In fact, it's been said that many questions are asked in getting businesses going. But one is a 3-part question. One, do I know what my customers want and need? Right? Do I understand where their pain points are, what kind of problems I'm going to help solve, or what kind of opportunities I'm going to illuminate? Number 2, do I have the resources, the competencies to meet those needs?
Right.
And number 3 is, to your point, do I stand out in the crowd?
Right.
Because you can have number 1, I can know what my customers want and need. You can have number 2, I've got everything to make those problems go away.
Right.
But if you don't have number 3, if you don't stand out in the crowd, none of that matters.
Right.
They will not find you.
Right.
Right.
It's important. Yeah. And drawing on that, it's not a 0-sum game.
Right.
For me to win, you don't have to lose. Right. And that's the healthy side of competition, right? Thinking that it is 0-sum and I need all the marbles out there, that's unhealthy. There's not a limited number of marbles out there. It's kind of infinite. Right. The pie continues to grow.
Yeah.
All you want to do is, get your piece and, maybe increase, and create an opportunity for yourself and people around you. But yeah, not 0-sum.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's a great point you make, is that for me to win, you don't have to lose. And we're talking about business here, right?
Yeah.
In this context.
In anything.
Yeah.
Even in competition, let's say you and I are competing.
Yeah.
And I won. Obviously you lost, but that doesn't mean it's not the end of the world,
Right.
I'll shake hands with you. I'll give you a tap on the shoulder. There is a next time.
Right.
It's not now or never.
Right.
Right. There's always more opportunities.
Yeah. It's not like the Olympics come once.
Right.
And it's like,
right.
once every 100 years, right? In your lifetime, right?
Right.
Every 4 years.
Yeah. Always more chances.
Always more chances.
Your business fails. All right. Pick it up. Start another one. Just keep going.
Yeah. And that's, so there's a good tangent here. Failure. I've, and our listeners would have heard me say this. I didn't come up with this, but failure is not final. It's feedback. It's only final when you give up. When you're done, right?
I'd agree with that. Yeah.
So when you do fail, do you treat it as feedback? How do you process it today? Not necessarily when you were, 10 years old and crying all over the place. I remember those days too. But today,
today, if I fail, the number one question I ask myself is why. And that's when the feedback part comes in, because you start to answer that why question. Okay. Very, very, if I had one failure story to tell, it would be when I was a little younger. I was 17, I think 18. And I had qualified for the World Championships. They were held in France. I went, competed, got my butt kicked in the individual competition.
What was your expectation going on?
My expectation for that competition was, try to make at least the round of 64. Okay. I know my level. I know the level of my competitors. I know the level of the competition, and I know that I had the quality to make the top 64 at the very least. After that, I could go all the way, or, I knew myself at the time. I knew I wasn't going to win the tournament. I was very honest with myself, but I knew I could definitely, within my grasp, make the top 64. I ended up not making it out of the first round. I lost all but one of my preliminary pool bouts, right?
And how many people are in that pool?
7, including myself. So I have to fence 6 bouts. To make it out of that, you have to win at the very least 2 with a decent indicator of, touches scored versus touches received. Yeah. 3 guarantees you
how
make
many
it out.
People are start? I mean, you end up with 60. I mean, yeah. So, is there
let's say around 250?
250. So you didn't make it out of the first 250.
I didn't know how to make. There's 250 in the entire competition for my event, and the bottom, I'd say 20% of the performers in the first round don't make it out. And I was in that bottom 20.
You're in that bottom 20.
Yeah, and it was a shock to me. It was a shock to my teammates. It was a shock to my dad, and I definitely sat with myself and asked why. I trained. I felt like I was doing what I was supposed to do. I did everything leading up to this to not guarantee, but at least somewhat succeed to a certain level, and I just didn't perform at all that day. And so I reviewed, what I did and what I was thinking of, every little minute detail that I could possibly think of, that day, down to what I was wearing. I reviewed everything. And I came back the next year to the same, I went through the road again, qualified, did my tournaments, qualified, and went, and I made the round of 16 in the next year. And in my opinion, then that year was a little more difficult than the year before, but when I failed, I definitely thought maybe it's not for me. I'm a little inconsistent. Should I keep going? I had these very difficult questions that I had to answer. Mm-hmm. And, my dad was there, and he didn't have much to say either. He's like, I don't know, man, what's going on? And I said, in the moment, I don't know either, but these.
Did he ask you what's going on because he knew that you could do better?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He always thinks he always thinks that I can do better more than I like to a higher degree than myself. Right.
Does that have an effect on you?
No, to be honest.
No. So you didn't drink the Kool-Aid, basically, right? So, and when I asked that, so there are self-limiting beliefs we have.
Okay.
And so part of leadership is to help to release or reduce or take the lid off of our self-limiting beliefs at times. So you may have this belief that you can't achieve something. And then of course someone says that, well, if you really believe, then you can do more than you ever thought you could achieve. And so and that's, we would joke around and say you're drinking the Kool-Aid, right? Because it's like you're buying into it. But what happens sometimes is that when we actually believe we can achieve more than we originally thought, we actually will work with a greater level of effort.
Right.
And ultimately effort can impact outcomes clearly, right? Not always. I mean, it's not a direct relationship at all times, but certainly there is a direct relationship to no effort versus my best possible effort.
Right.
So that's where the question comes in is dad says, no, you've got more in you. I think you can do even better.
Right.
Do you say, you know what, dad, maybe I didn't give it my all that time, or maybe I couldn't do that? Or do you just say, no, dad, I've expended every possible ounce of energy to make this happen and it didn't happen?
Yeah. So in the moment, it was like that.
It was like that.
Right. But as time passes, then I realized, the way that I, bounce back is I worked way harder, right? Like you said, there's a stark difference between no effort and a lot of effort. There's also a stark difference between a lot of effort and maximum effort.
Right.
Okay. So only when I took that leap, because when I first thought, I thought that a lot of effort was max effort, until I kind of dug deep and, had an honest reality check, and said, could I give more? Yeah, I can give more. Right.
So dad was right.
Dad was right.
Yeah.
Dad was right. And I came back to him and told him, hey, you were right. I didn't see it at that time, and he was there to guide me, to shine the light.
Nice.
Yeah. But I like what you said about alleviating self-limiting beliefs, and whether it's in business, whether it's in sports, your mentality is extremely, extremely important. I'd say fundamental. It builds everything. It really guides you to wherever it is that you're going to end up. And this is something I struggled with a lot during my fencing career, and even up until now. The self-limiting beliefs. Am I able to? Can I compete with these guys? And I don't, like you said, drinking the Kool-Aid. I don't drink the Kool-Aid. I never say, yeah, I can do it. Yeah, I can do it. I definitely can. It's all, I'm very empirical, very pragmatic. If I want it, I got to get it. If you really want it, you got to get it. What are they doing that I'm not doing? Let me do that. Right. Let me train how the top train. If you want to be a really good soccer player, look at Cristiano Ronaldo, look at Lionel Messi. How do they train? Do that.
Yeah.
Right. And do your best, because they're at the top.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up the word pragmatic. So there's a relationship between, in terms of leadership and vision, between pragmatism and and optimism, right? Or pragmatism and what we call it ideology or ideological view. So the ideological side is naturally optimistic about, what can become.
Right.
But of course, the pragmatic side is what are the steps necessary to make this vision real?
Right.
And so some of the greatest visionaries, I don't want to say seamlessly, but externally looking, seamlessly marry this ideology and this pragmatism. And so you think about an Elon Musk, for example, with reusable rockets. Why couldn't we do that 50 years ago, right? Why couldn't we do it 30 years ago? Why couldn't we do it 20 or 10 or 5? Why does someone say, hey, how crazy is it to not have reusable rockets? It's like taking a 767 across the ocean and then destroying it.
Yeah.
Right? It's the idea to him was just so
baffling.
Yeah, baffling, but impractical, non-pragmatic, right?
Yeah.
But the pragmatic side of how things have always been done said, well, we've always done it this way. So, we're just going to throw away, billions of dollars every year on this tech.
Right.
And so he comes in and says, no, here's an ideology that's already been done in different industries. So let's do it in our industry. And so he makes that ideological aim real through himself and others through a pragmatic set of steps.
Right.
And so even you moving forward, think, okay, what is the best possible outcome for me? Right? Even something that is just even a little further than is even possible.
Right.
That way, you've got to expend the maximum amount of energy. You leave nothing on the table.
Right.
To make it real.
Right. And so you have to have a clear set of goals.
Yes.
A clear
set of goals, clear vision, clear destination.
Right. And that comes through practice. Let's say it's easy to look at the top of the mountain, but you may not see the top of the mountain that clearly as you, let's say, think it is. Like, oh, I want $1 million. Do you even know what $1 million is like? Right? You just know the number in your head. I want to be an Olympic champion, right? What does that look like? Right? I can see myself on the podium in my head, right? But you got to break that down, what goes into that, right? And then follow the steps, So like Elon Musk, why can't we have reusable rockets? It's been done in other industries. So what are the steps to take to do this? And do I have the means to do this? Right? It's very important to be able to have the means.
Yeah, both resources and resourcefulness.
Yeah.
They go hand in hand.
Resourcefulness. I like that word.
Yeah. So, and I heard that from another leadership guy who Tony Robbins, you may have heard of, but he talks about not only having resources is important, but also being resourceful.
Right.
And so, because at certain times we don't have all the resources available to continue forward, but through resourcefulness, we find ways to continue to accomplish.
Correct.
Yeah. So the big takeaway from that is don't wait until you have all the resources to start the journey.
Yeah. Tomorrow never comes. Right. I'll do it tomorrow. Oh, someday. Nah. No, go get it.
Yeah, go get it.
Yeah.
Speaking of $1 million, I dropped out of college to be a millionaire. That was part of my, at 21 years old, because I saw guys like Michael Dell and Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, all of them dropping out of college, right? And they're like, hey, they're rich. It's got to be easy, right? It was anything but easy. And in fact, it's funny, by the time I was in my mid-20s, I stopped telling people I was a year older because I wanted to be a millionaire by 30.
Okay.
And so when I was 25, I realized, oh shoot, this is taking longer. So when I turned 26, I told people I was still 25. And it was just dumb and silly. But I had this idea that I wanted to be a millionaire. But part of the problem was, as you stated, I didn't have the steps in order. And really, the truth of it, I wasn't really willing to put the work in. And at the time, I was still, having fun. I was still, taking my friends out to the bars and meeting girls and all that other stuff. Well, that costs money.
25-year-old stuff.
What most 20-something-year-olds are doing, right? And I didn't have the discipline to really make that goal real. And the other part of it is that it was more in my head than in my heart. You know?
Yeah.
It was less about, because I really didn't care as much.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of grew up not money motivated and more of a philosopher, right? Than an entrepreneur.
Okay.
Like business was a means to an end so that I can pursue sort of like the world and what are the issues that we have with humanity and making, improving the human condition. That was always, I wasn't really thinking so much about money. I was more of a little bit of a hippie when it came to money, right? Okay. I was a commune type of person, right? Everybody could come over and hang out. Don't call it my TV, it's our TV, right? So I had the wrong goal. Clearly had the wrong goal, and I was never going to achieve that because I really didn't want it.
Right.
I wanted the idea.
Right.
And so as you move forward, and you in your own trajectory. So what are some goals? Certainly the Olympics. You've been to the Olympics, and you plan to go back,
right?
And what do you hope to accomplish? What do you plan to accomplish? I've heard it said like this: hope is not a strategy.
Okay.
So where do you want to go?
What do I hope to accomplish? Okay, so when you said, when you said the money wasn't in your heart, it was in your brain. What was at your heart was something a little deeper, a little bit more abstract, improving the human condition, the pursuing virtue, for example. I think that's kind of my ultimate, like, number one thing. I want to be a virtuous person. I want to have a good character. Okay. The Olympics to me is like a personal challenge, that I set for myself. I mean, okay, I want to do it for myself because I enjoy every minute of it. And the overall result, let's say, is not important to me as, the journey, the struggle, the grind, and all of the experiences and lessons and tools that I acquired through that journey on my way to, let's say, becoming, hopefully, fingers crossed, an Olympic medalist. Okay. Now, after that, whether I make it or I don't, okay, I will take all of the tools that I have, acquired and all the experiences, and then I will, use them, hand in hand to achieve, let's say, my lifelong goals, the goals that, let's say, I'm setting for myself now of developing a good character and being a good person and trying to bestow wisdom onto others and kind of lead people to a path back to virtue, because in my opinion, we're a little lacking in 2021 of virtuous qualities, good characters, good ethics and morals, and just being kind to each other, being civil to each other. So that's really my goal, if I can clearly state it, and what I choose to do, I'll kind of cross that bridge when I get there. Whether it be through entrepreneurship, whether it be through working at a hospital, or finding somewhere that aligns with my values and my principles. And so that's kind of my goal. And, the Olympics for me is it's in and of itself a goal, but I can't be a competitor forever, right? I can't compete I can't be an Olympian at 85.
Not unless those nanobots have something to do with it. Right?
Oh, no, new magic pills, right? Elon Musk, what are you working on? But that is my goal. Ultimately,
I love that. I love that this is part of the journey for you, but it doesn't define you.
Right.
It's really important to hear that, especially out of someone who is the part of the next generation of leaders.
Yeah.
And so where do you attribute your virtue center from? I mean, where is that something that family, is it mentors? Where is that coming from? How do we know how to explore that? Because I think that what you said will really resonate with listeners who want to be a part of that story of helping people to find the value in, like you said, kindness. Man, it goes so far. Yet it is, and the cost is nothing, but the reward is so great.
It is great. Well, the path to virtue, in my opinion, is and it goes more on an individual level. I think one has to be willing to go forth on this path and try to find what Aristotle calls the golden mean between two extremes. You could be foolish, and you could be a coward. And right smack dab in the center between those two is being courageous. That is a virtue. And so you kind of just apply that logic with almost everything else, and you try to find that calm center. And it is difficult, and it's something that's meant to be practiced. It's not something that comes automatic. It's not a yes or no. It's not black and white. It's something difficult. It's taxing. And quite frankly, it's just not an easy thing to do or find, right? But like you said, like we said earlier, there's no effort, and then there's even a little bit of effort, and there's max effort. So I think if a lot of people just commit to taking that step forward and being more conscious of themselves and their actions and how that affects other people around them, and how it affects them in their own personal life, outside of anyone else, then, that's a good step for anybody to take. And a lot of people just have to take, if everybody in the world just took one step, we'd all move in a very good direction.
Yes.
Just one step. Even if you're going to stop at one step, it's better than 0 steps.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I love how you brought Aristotle into it. Of course, I've studied Aristotle as well as a armchair philosopher, I guess you'd call me. And some of the old ways are just as relevant today as they were then. Some would say, "Oh, well, all the old ways are dead," and I think that's people trying to sell something that they have repackaged as new. But when you talk about even excellence, Aristotle said that here's how we get excellence through practice. I mean, that has not changed.
It's a habit.
It's a habit, right? And even excellence in having virtues, like you said, comes with practice. Look, I haven't always been a patient and kind person. I was, a hard head. I was a fireball, always in trouble. And over time, with the right kind of guidance, I began to recognize that, wow, patience and kindness are so incredibly powerful, but they also are a result sometimes, I think, of our own ability to be vulnerable, because courage and vulnerability can go hand in hand in certain contexts, especially when you're not afraid to be true. And so let's use an example. Road rage.
Okay.
I know it's a left field example, right? Road rage. When someone calls you number one on the highway, right? Maybe you cut them off or something. What's the natural reaction? Maybe to, give them a fist or something like that, because you're protecting your own honor, maybe in a sense. But what does kindness and patience do? It just waves a hand and whispers, "Sorry, I don't know what happened there, but I'm sorry. It happened to me." Yeah. It happened to me. Wasn't even in driving. I was going into a car wash, and there was a guy who was cleaning his wheels right next to the car wash. And I pulled in front of him, and I started going to the car wash, and I looked in the rear view, and I saw his hands were like up, like, "Hey dude, what's up with that?" Yeah. And I was like, "Oh shoot. He must have been cleaning his wheels so that he could just go right into the car wash." And so I backed up. And I go, "Hey man, I am so sorry. I didn't even realize that's what you were doing. Let me go ahead and back up and so that you can get in." Everything changed. Right. He was like, "Oh man, no worries, brother. Just go on in there."
Right. Meant a lot to him because you acknowledged him and his, existence.
Yeah.
You did the right thing.
Huge.
Yeah. It's funny you said that. As I was coming in here, I was making a left turn, and there was like a little divider that I didn't see that split the two-way traffic coming into the complex here. And I took the wrong one, so I turned left into, oncoming traffic, nothing serious, I was walking into a plaza, so it's no big deal. But there was another car coming from in front, right? And I immediately saw the arrow on the ground, and, I just kind of, stopped the car and just kind of put my two hands up like this in the car so that they can see me, like, "I'm sorry," and she, went around, and I even put my window down, and I was like, "Sorry." And, she gave me a smile, and was like, oh, it's okay. You know, people make mistakes. And for me, that felt really good, right? Because she could have taken it a completely different way. It's like, what are you doing? What an idiot, honk, honk. Like, this is the wrong lane, you know? But ultimately, what does she get out of that if she chose to go down that path, right?
And seeds, I mean, what are you sowing seeds of? And these seeds of grace, unmerited favor. In some ways, I was at Starbucks getting ready to come pull in, and someone pulled in front of me. And I just stopped, and they realized, ooh, I just cut them off. And I just waved in the parking lot. Hey, no big deal. Go ahead.
Yeah.
And when I got to the front, guess what? My drink was free.
There you go.
They paid my drink.
Yeah.
They didn't have to do that.
Right.
But it's just this, and you say, okay, well, what is it called? Paying it forward. Right. Yeah, you can call it that, but I think it's deeper than that. You know, it's back to, look, we're human beings. We want to be heard. And I think there's an attraction to these virtues you're talking about. And we can't just expect it to happen.
Right.
This is back to our original conversation on leadership.
Right.
We've got to model it.
Right.
And when we model it, then others see, wow, this is pretty cool. I can do this. And maybe some of the defense mechanisms start to come down, and maybe some of the anger, because we live in such a condemning time in our culture. I mean, if you just turn anything on, turn social media on, or turn the news on, and there's so much, and politics, and there's so much condemnation. And so my philosophy is, you know, kill condemnation with compassion.
Yeah. Okay. And I like that.
Yeah. You can keep it. Maybe it'll be on a bumper sticker sometime, but condemnation over condemnation can be defeated by compassion, right? So compassion kills condemnation. And some cynics would argue, well, no, you've got to condemn certain acts and things like that. And we're not talking about, you know, heinous behavior. Certainly there's a requirement to set the right kind of boundaries within our legal system and so on. Yeah. We're not talking about that. We're just simply talking about having a compassionate heart. And rather than going right to, hey, you're different than me, so I've got to condemn you because we don't share the same pragmatism, ideology, path, or whatever. Let me just have some compassion and walk with you for a mile.
Yeah. You got to have you have to create a good space for anybody to come forward and share. Okay. Because everyone has, like you said, if you don't do that, the defense mechanisms are just all over the place, and you can't get through to anybody, right? And that's detrimental to society as a whole. Yeah. So, you know, creating that space and giving people, you know, the opportunity to say their piece and be themselves around you or whatever.
Oftentimes people just want to be heard.
Kind. Yeah, just be kind. Yeah. Be kind, be civil. Even if you don't like the person in front of you and you just disagree with everything that they have to say, and, you know, they are everything that you are not, you know, the very, very least you can do if you can't be kind is be civil. Okay. But, you know, being kind is, you know,
it's a step up.
Yeah.
Well, and then even listening as an act of kindness, that to me is a virtue that shows care. And I mean, we're talking about real listening, right? Not listening long enough to where you're just waiting so that you can say what you want to say.
Yeah, responding in your head before you finish listening, actively listening to the person.
Actively listening and trying to understand. Because here's one thing that has dawned on me over the years. And, you know, I had been in school for many years. In fact, my son said, Dad, how many years were you in school? I said, well, half my life. He said, do I have to go to school that long? I said, no, you don't, unless the pursuits that you have require that. But if not, no. And what I'd found going through, of course, you know, high school, then undergrad, and then grad, and of course working on a PhD, is the more I learned, the more I realized how much I didn't know.
Right.
It's really quite humbling, sobering to realize just how much knowledge and wisdom, information has yet to be learned. And I say that because the natural next step is, well, if I don't know everything that is to be known, in fact, even if I only know a fraction, I mean, not even a recordable fraction of information that's available, then wouldn't it make sense that I can always learn from someone that has a different understanding?
Right. I mean, when you read a book, you're practically learning from someone already, What's the difference between that and talking to someone, right? You're listening to what someone else has to say. I think it's like a difference is when you're reading, you can, let's say, go back, you can put the book down, but it is almost the same as listening to someone if you really think about it that way. It's the words of someone else, right?
It's 100% listening.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just you're listening with your eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's what's great about reading. And so this is actually the second conversation I've had this week about reading and how reading can be really helpful for as a tool. And it's actually the first time I've even heard it. As I've read so many books, but the first time I've even identified it as listening with your eyes, which is fascinating because we live in such a video heavy world right now.
Yeah.
I mean, YouTube and social media and everything is just these video. And now, of course, TikTok, these video clips and people are checking out from reading. I mean, they're just not even doing it. And so, I mean, being an educator, teaching at a university, I'm finding even that students are becoming less and less adept at their writing skills than they were 10 years ago. Clearly, because they're not reading and they're not writing. You know, of course, they're not back to Aristotle, right?
Yeah,
they're not practicing.
Right.
And so, do you read?
Yes. Yeah. I like reading a lot. I have a lot of books at home. I have a lot of books I still haven't read because I buy books at a rate way faster than I read them. But I read some really good books in the past couple of years. Nothing that, let's say, relates to what we're talking about. Maybe one remotely. I read the book by Charles Whelan, I think, Power of Habit. And I felt that same feeling that you felt, which is the more I learn, the more I realize how much I don't know, right? And we talked about it earlier that, Aristotle defined, excellence as a habit, and this book, teaches you step by step how to create habits, good habits, how to cease bad habits, and just how to be more aware of habits and, how they work biologically, and it's in extreme detail and in an easy package, anyone can read it type of book, and let's say, for example, we create, a little utopia world in which everybody has read this book, right? Good step forward for society as a whole, because that is the ultimate goal. We're not here for a very long time, and we have a couple of options in the society that we live in. We can retreat and just do our own thing, not care about anyone else around us, or we can go out there and make the most out of it and try to make that society better, try to make it flourish, like that word, flourishing. But as you said, we do live in a world, the TikTok, YouTube, internet world. And in my opinion, the very strong opinion of mine is that when people spend so much time on it, they are just in a void. It's almost like their humanity is not even there anymore. They're just existing in space. They're not a rational thinking being anymore. They're not applying themselves to anything. And as you said, really important skills are declining: reading, writing, having a decent attention span. These things are extremely important for not just, them getting through school, but later on in life, if you want to lead, if you want to create something that lasts. TikTok videos don't last. They're like a minute long. They're like 6 seconds long. 6 seconds, flip. 6 seconds, flip. 6 seconds, flip.
Yeah. And what are most of the videos? Right now, at least.
I don't even know.
People dancing around.
Yeah, people dancing around, right? Yeah. Like, I don't really know what's going on. I don't have it, but it's just entertainment.
Yeah. And you talk about reading, and so I envision reading as a bit of a quieting of the mind, and like you said, some of the longer attention span. You're training your mind to have a greater attention span. Also, it engages your imagination.
Oh yeah.
Because when you're watching something, someone else is filling that space of imagination. You don't have anything to imagine when you are having someone else create the imagination for you. But when you are reading, different parts of your brain are firing off, which are creating, opening up the synapses for critical thinking, for analysis, for envisioning how that word is interpreted in your own mind, which further in creativity, exploration, those are essential aspects of leadership. 100%.
Absolutely.
Think about it. Like if, discovery is essential for leadership because you have to discover what vision, where you want to go, right? To go someplace. And if everyone else is discovering for you, i.e. video or whatnot, then what are you really discovering on your own?
Where's your spice?
Right. Yeah. Where's your spice?
Yeah.
I like that.
Like, let's say have you seen Harry Potter?
Of course.
Okay. So a lot of us have seen Harry Potter, right? If I say Harry Potter, you're going to think Daniel Radcliffe, right?
Right.
But before I saw the movie, I read the book. Harry Potter was completely different in my mind than, let's say, when you read Harry Potter, he's completely different in your mind. Professor McGonagall has a voice in my head that's different from the voice in your head. But the shared media makes it the same for everybody, right?
Right.
So like you said, like we said earlier, when you read, you engage your brain in different ways. You're creative. You make your own world. You make your own path. Harry Potter could be a goblin for all I know in someone else's head. It doesn't have to be a human being. I don't know. He could be not European, right. Who knows? It could be whatever you want it to be, but that shared media where you kind of shut everything else off and you just consume what it is, like a bag of Doritos, it's going to be the same every single time. And over time, people have to be aware that over time, these things do make a big difference. And let's say you're just your brain in general, you as a person. Yeah.
And even how you define your worldview and your context around you is impacted by that. So as we wrap up, and this has been such an incredible, I love our conversation, and we have to do it again.
Oh, for sure.
You talked about the mountaintop.
Okay.
And so I have a question for you.
Okay.
One day you'll be on the mountaintop, and we're talking about the end of the journey, right?
Right.
The final mountaintop. If you were able to say in one sentence how you would want to be remembered on that mountaintop, what would you say?
In one sentence, how would I want to be remembered at the mountaintop? That's a toughie. This chair's getting hot.
As it should be, yes.
So I want to be remembered as someone who, I don't know, let's say, I have to think about this real hard, okay? One sentence, huh? Gotta condense it. I want to be remembered as someone with a kind heart who was always looking, always actively searching to help others in their pursuits, while at the same time relentlessly going towards my pursuits, which under them falls, helping other people in whichever way, makes life really good for them. In a way that I support as well.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Well, you are on your way, my friend.
I hope so.
Yeah. So good talking with you, Mohamed.
Oh,
Thank you so much for being on the program.
It is my pleasure.
We'll have you again.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Well, my friend, thank you for joining me on this episode of A Call to Leadership. If you've been listening, you've probably heard me talk about our accounting and advisory business. And this show was actually born out of that business, those relationships. I found that entrepreneurs and professionals were missing aspects of their leadership that fed into their bottom line and helped their businesses be successful. If you're in that place where you feel, oh my goodness, my tax person or my accountant, I can't find them, or maybe the service wasn't up to my expectations, do not despair. I'll leave how you can find us in the show notes.